Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk today.
Hello, everyone. Glad to have you with us.
Yes. Okay. So before we dive in today, it is time for this week's What's Trending. So this is if you've been watching this for a while, this is something new that we're starting this season of Real Talk, and we're going to talk the about Ted Lasso. And Ted Lasso, we're anxiously waiting for because season 4 is going to come out. And they have dropped a trailer on Ted Lasso. So people are getting excited about it.
They did? I didn't even see that yet.
They did. It's super quick. It's a super quick trailer. They're sitting at a table in the local bar. That's a staple to the show. And that's the only thing that kind of dropped. So I'm excited about season 4. It was only meant to be 3 seasons. So that kind of makes me a little nervous about the 4th season, but Ted Lasso is awesome.
Yeah, I'm all about Ted Lasso. Like, I've done Ted Lasso marathons. I've had my kids watch them with me. Like, it is so awesome. Like, it'd be a great watch series
Yes.
together.
Yes. And it's just heartfelt and heartwarming and wholesome. And if you have never watched Ted Lasso, we encourage you to. But it is an Apple TV show, and Google's AI describes it as a comedy drama about an optimistic American college football coach who is hired to manage a struggling English soccer or football team, AFC Richmond, despite having no knowledge of the sport. So he knows American football. He does not know English football, right, or soccer. And the show is just so full of goodness, but there are so many culture and leadership gems within the show.
And I think to me that obviously being here in this space doing like leadership culture is what I think is fantastic, because it has all these subtle ways of being an intentional leader.
Yes.
And it's just really putting people before everything else.
Yes.
But I don't want to be a spoiler, but it does have a moment where it talks about what happens if you put people so far ahead of things. Does that shift the balance on what you can get for outcomes?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It navigates even through that question, because I think that's a worry that people have. Like, if I focus so much on people, will I lose track of the KPIs like revenue and efficiency and first pass quality?
Yes.
Spoiler, no.
Right. And you see that unfold in Ted Lasso, right? And it doesn't mean that they don't have losses, right? Like at the beginning of their team, and that's really where this whole like infamous belief sign, even if you've never watched Ted Lasso, you maybe have seen this belief sign that Ted put up. I think it was the first episode of the show when he first arrived, and the team was in this like disarray, right? They were basically crumbling, and he put up that sign and basically said, "I believe in you." Mm-hmm. And it really is this like heart of the show throughout, and it really sort of discusses sort of like Ted's philosophy that football, and therefore life, football is life, is about believing in possibility, in people, and in the good that can come from trust and effort. And when we think about leadership, right, like we talk a lot about building relationships, building trust, building safe spaces, and being intentional, which is really the effort that you put into. It's all about how you can really help bring out the best in your teams, right, so that they can accomplish more than they ever thought was possible, right?
Yeah, and I think the believe in people is so important. Yeah. And when it plays out in Ted Lasso, you can see this belief in everyone. And I really invite leaders to think about that, especially as we're coming into this last season, before we start doing all of, this is typically the season we start doing performance reviews and all of that good stuff. So often our organizations tell us, focus on the high performers, bring them along with you. And I think it's really important to think about, you need to believe in everyone.
Yes.
You need to believe in everyone. You need to develop everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Last week when I was at the Meat Institute Food Safety Conference, one of the quotes that we shared, and I don't know it verbatim, but it was essentially like, every person can be a high performer with the right leader.
Yeah.
And so if we're thinking, gosh, I have people on my team, we've been taught like high performers, middle performers, low performers.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Like, what if we challenge that thinking of there aren't truly low performers? It's just I haven't invested enough in them.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to bang your head on the wall, but it's once again coaching up or coaching out. Like, how do you find where people thrive? And sometimes as a leader, that may be, yep, here's the path we develop internally and do all these things. Sometimes it's like, how do I develop you here to be able to go do something that fills your bucket even more?
Right. Exactly. And I mean, to your point, a lot of organizations, they don't look at it that way, right? They look at their high performers and they pour so much into their high performers, which is great, but they leave, right, the 80% of people that's just really here unengaged or actively disengaged from the work that they're doing. And because we're in this state within food where we're struggling with retention, right, we're struggling with culture change, right? Even the culture within food is starting to change. Generations, right, are leaving the workforce, entering the workforce. And we're struggling with that. And when we see that the traditional way of only pouring into people who we consider to be high performers, we don't get the results that we actually need.
No. And Tia, I've been on this soapbox before. Like, to me, this is simple math.
Yes.
If I have a team of 20 people, and I'll even be generous and say we have 5 that are high performers we're going to dump into, and we think we're going to get 25% more out of them. That's like 100 to 125% more.
Yeah.
Well, what if we had these other 15 people that we could just get even 10% more out of?
Right.
Like, we have already like met or even surpassed what we could get out of those high performers.
Right. Yes.
To me, it's a no-brainer that we invest in everyone.
Yes, absolutely. And right, like we talk about this all the time, and Ted Lasso is just a really good example of investing in each member of his team. And it looks different, right? Like, it looks different the way that you invest in the star players on your team, right? It looks different from the ones whose role really is to support, right? It looks different on how you pour into them, but you still pour into them. And it really is critical that we do that. And that we really think about us as leaders. How do we do that on our team, right? How do we step into that? And if you even have the skills to be able to coach, right? To be able to coach up or coach out, because that takes skill to do.
And even that comes up in Ted Lasso. So if you are still on the fence about should I watch Ted Lasso, or maybe you have not, because I was an early resistor.
Oh, were you of Ted Lasso?
I was, because all I heard was, oh my gosh, Ted Lasso. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
what?
Everybody's talking about it. I am staying like far away from it. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, oh, I should have checked it out before I made such a harsh judgment that if everybody loved it, I needed to stay away from it.
And I know you love Ted Lasso. So this is like...
I do, because like you said, it is such a fantastic story about like what we need to be doing when we think about leading in food or anywhere, honestly, in life.
So many gems. So definitely check it out because I know the new season is probably going to drop next year. Fingers crossed, right? That we'll have it next year. Catch up on all 3 seasons. You will not regret it.
Right. And then you'll be ready for like all the what's trending, and we could talk about it even more.
Yes. So thank you for that. And we would love to hear your perspectives around it. And if you have watched Ted Lasso, let us know. Let us know in the chat. If you love it, put a heart emoji. If not, then put a little.
Tell us why.
Yeah, that's right. Well, welcome to Real Talk by Catalyst Food Leaders, where we have honest conversations to lead people forward in food. I am Tia, and this is Jill, and this episode is called Culture is a Contact Sport. We will explore some of the real losses, right, and wins we've had over our decades-long career in food, and what happens when we intentionally connect with others. And we're curious, right? Do you agree that culture is a contact sport? Right? We would love for you to share your experiences and your perspectives in the chat. Like, we really want to hear from you. So test out the chat by letting us know where you're watching or listening from. We'd love to say hello. And if you are new to us, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we talk about all things culture and leadership within our unique space of food. And at Catalyst, we are on a mission to reimagine how people in food lead so that they can drive better culture and therefore better business growth through culture and leadership development. And we partner with organizations ready to do the work, those who want sustainable, transformative solutions, right, to unlock their potential, align their teams, and drive meaningful results. And Real Talk is just our way of sharing key tips and tools so that you can start to shift culture today, because we really truly believe that you are a catalyst for change. So welcome, welcome. We're excited about today's topic.
Yeah, and I think you teed it up really well that it's a contact sport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I'll even share like my early leadership example of when I first became a lab manager, right? I had just finished my master's at Madison, and I was really ready to step in and kind of help this lab, but I also had other things I was doing at the company too. Mm-hmm. And the people at the lab had already been there like 5, 10, 20 years. Like, it was a small lab, 6 people. They already knew what to do. I would say, and this is mistaking, this shows how immature I was in my leadership when I was kind of like, they're kind of on autopilot. Like, they know what to do. They just keep doing what they're doing. Yeah, we'll make a few changes, but we'll just kind of do that.
Right. Yeah.
That was a mistake. That was not thinking about culture as a contact sport. That was just being like, you go do your thing and, we'll catch up periodically. I'll just be a nice person and we'll get along and, make things happen.
Yes.
I mean, I know I'm kind of watering it down and there's a lot of other parts, but that's really the gist of, I mistakenly thought that because we were peers and could work together and they already knew what to do, that as a leader, like, I wasn't really there for much.
Yeah. I feel like that's
a more title than actual leading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you probably thought this is what you should do, right?
I did, because that's part of what I had seen when I had worked in other labs or other companies. Mm-hmm. Like, they're like, you're a professional, like, do what you do.
Yeah.
So, which is really interesting, because in our space of food, I think we often think that as well. The people that we're working with, we are professionals, but as leaders, we need to be professional leaders.
Yes.
Not just another, professional who goes about and does our task list.
Yes. So I'm curious, when you decided to take that approach, thought you were doing the right thing, what kind of triggered you to say, "Ooh, I need to look at this differently"?
I can look back, because hindsight is always 20/20. Mm-hmm. But there were certain moments along that path in the lab that were flags that I should do something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. For example, one of those was that our lab essentially worked 5 days a week, but our production was usually at least 6, often 7. Yeah. And, that kind of creates a bottleneck for the people at our facilities who are collecting samples and holding them until the lab shows up. And so one of the things that we shifted was, how does our business better structure our schedule to better support our actual production in the facility?
Right. Yeah.
That wasn't what everybody loved. Like, there were a lot of people who were like, I like working Monday through Friday. Like, I've been doing it for 5, 10, 20 years. And now you're thinking we should come in on weekends.
Right.
So had I been, and that was a moment worth a flag. We're like, okay, I think we kind of approached it with the right intent, but had I been a better leader, it probably would have transitioned a lot better. Mm-hmm. So I had a flag or two like that in that role. And then, of course, when I moved into a bigger role where I was managing across the facilities, clearly I had some messages that were like, that leadership doesn't work.
Right. I think that I love this example from your career, because it shows like the organization, right, really didn't prep you to be able to move into this first leadership role in the lab and be able to say, this is how you lead with intention, right? This is why culture and leadership is a contact sport.
Yeah, and just to kind of give a little background, like I was very active in 4-H, taking on leadership roles, and in student council, and in like Junior Holstein Association, and all these different groups where people are like, well, you've had leadership roles, you've served as president, you've served on like the state Junior Holstein board. Yeah, great. Those two didn't prepare me to be a leader in an organization.
Yeah. Yeah,
those were procedurally, how do you do things, and kind of popularity contests. Those weren't things about being a leader.
That's so true. I was also a part of student council, and that's what I would tell people. It's really just a popularity contest, right?
Right. And I mean, I'm not trying to minimize it. It gives people exposure and experience that they wouldn't necessarily have. But I think we also sometimes mistake, or we don't fully understand how some of those experiences may prepare us for different roles versus maybe where it doesn't prepare us, but we think it has.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much to learn, right? When you're doing those type of activities, you're picking up skills, but the skill of managing a team, especially an experienced team, many of us, one of our first experiences in food is managing an experienced team. People who have either worked there much longer than you. I mean, I remember when I first managed my first team, I mean, they were making yogurt before, like, I probably was even forming sentences. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm supposed to lead them. Like, what does that mean? Right? Like, what does that truly mean? It doesn't actually mean that I'm going to teach them how to do their job, which I think sometimes traditional leadership is like, oh, I'm going to help them do their job better. I'm going to help them. And of course you are in certain ways, but I'm not here to help. I'm not here to like teach you about yogurt, right? Like you've literally been making yogurt before, like I even knew people were behind making this yogurt. I'm really here to help make your role better, remove obstacles for you, right? Optimize the work that we're doing, help implement new solutions coming down. It's things like that that's happening that takes very different skills than skills that we might have learned in activities like you're saying in 4-H or in student council or just some leadership we maybe have done before.
Yeah. And I think that's the part where when we think about leadership and it being a direct contact sport, we go back to Ted Lasso. It's how do we support, encourage, and ensure people have the right tools to do what we need them to do for the organization. And it's really that building capacity within people to model the behaviors that you want to bring everybody along. And so often I think about how even companies, and I've worked in companies too that have done work to try to improve culture.
Yeah.
But we're also fighting this uphill battle with these like broken systems and these remnant of systems that still like are embedded and live within almost every aspect of our organization. So being able to pause and recognize that. And I say that because then what I did after I was like the hands-off leader, then when I went into this other space, what I saw from leaders around me was that they were in their people's business all the time. Like you need to report in, you need to have all these meetings, you need to like all these things. Well, gosh, that didn't help them either.
Right.
So I went from like no contact to full contact, and my team was like, back off. Like,
right. Yeah.
It's not a full contact sport. And it's not. That's where when we think about even with Ted Lasso, he wasn't in their face all the time.
Right. Yeah.
He was very intentional on what are the moments where I get to be there to support people and have hard conversations and encourage people and ask them to think what needs to happen for us to be better, more, and bigger together.
Yes. I think it's that balance. And that kind of takes us to our first point. Like we have four good points around why culture is a contact sport. And the first one is that number one, culture requires that direct engagement. And I love it that you brought up that there is a balance around that engagement, right? Like there's a balance between I'm completely hands off and I need to know every single detail of your work. And that balance determines your person, right? Like if you have a new intern coming in that's never worked in the industry, you're probably going to be more engaged with them than someone who's been working for 20 years. right, in the position or within the organization or within the industry, right? That engagement looks different. And a leader, right, can disrupt almost like the flow if you lean too far away or too far in.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And I think, right, for me, the path out of that was being very intentional on my own growth and leadership development.
Yes.
Because otherwise I was stuck in the box I was in, or I was doing things that I thought could be helpful, but I didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had to develop those skills.
You do.
This one makes me think of the Nike "Just Do It" walking billboard, right? Like, okay, well, it requires direct engagement. Just go do it. Just go ask questions. Just go build relationships. Just go create safe spaces. Just go and do it. When in reality, it takes skill to be able to do it successfully, right? Everyone can try to have a conversation, but we remember, right? I'm sure each of us can think about a leader we've had a conversation with that went well, right? And some that did not go well. And you see they're trying to make the connection, but it's just not working out because they truly don't have the skills to be able to do that.
I think that really plays into the kind of the next point that we wanted to share with people. Like, being a leader is messy and human.
Yes.
It's not always going to flow well. It's not always, confrontational either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there are things, if you are leading the way that is helping people move forward, you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
I think about, last week I was on the phone with one of our clients talking about like what needed to happen next. And they're like, well, I really haven't done it yet. And I'm like, why not? And they're holding up, like telling me about the list of things that they have to get done.
Yeah.
And I was like, time out. You're avoiding the next big step that you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's messy, but like, what's causing it to feel messy for you?
Yes. Yes. And what you'll see is great leaders lean into that, right? Lean into that messiness, right? Versus avoiding. And we all get into that situation, right? Where we try, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to have this conversation today. I don't want to talk to that person today, right? But as a leader, right, leaning into that and knowing, right, culture, it's human, it's messy.
Yeah. And I love when you say lean in, because from my own experience, and as I think about, having the calls that I've had with people around this, nobody's like, I can't wait. Yay. Like, I mean, that might not be the next step of your mindset around this. I know even for me, I'd be like, oh
yeah, still.
Like, I feel the pain, but a leader will stop and go, I feel this pain. I recognize that that's the sign that I need to move in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that it makes it easier, but a good leader will notice I'm avoiding. They will notice I have been like, I keep putting something off, or I'm afraid to go have the conversation, or whatever that is. So it doesn't mean that you're all like joyful about doing it. But I do think it helps, because once you notice that, you can reframe it and be like, if I'm serving this person and being kind, the best thing I can do is start this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And great leaders have the right skills to be able to navigate the messiness and the humanness of the industry, right? They're able to navigate it without destroying bridges or burning relationships. It doesn't mean, right, it doesn't feel, right, like we feel the conflict, we feel it, we feel like we want to avoid it, like you said. But you learn to navigate it, and with the right skills, you can. This makes me think of when I was a young quality engineer, and I worked at a facility where, if you did not do your food safety or your quality checks, you ended up what we called it a miss. And it was basically like a corrective action that you'll get written up. And, but there was a process to appeal it. So a person could appeal it and say, I didn't have the right labels out here, or, whatever the reason was. And if it was a real reason, right, something messed up in the process, then we will waive it, we will close it, and we'll actually close the gap. And it was a full loop. I had an operator who I could not waive the miss, and she did not talk to me for months. And it was something where me and one of my friends, I'm like, I know she's mad at me, right? Like, I know she's mad at me. I can't do anything about it, but I know that she's mad at me. She would talk to me if I talked to her, right? So if I needed to give her direction, or if I needed to, train, or if I needed to do something, she was pleasant, but you could tell she was not into it. But I continued to lean into being uncomfortable. I continued to do my job. I continued to make sure she was set up for success. I remembered that she was on this project team and she was one of the leads. So I had to have conversations with her to set her up for success for the trial. And we did, but just that uncomfortableness, right? I could have avoided it, but I tried to lean in. And then one month she talked to me, right? Like, and I remember talking to my friend, like, oh my goodness, she came up to me and started a conversation with me. And that's when I knew we were on this other side, right? We were on this other side. And then it just, right, the awkwardness just literally went away after that. And it could have all been in me, right? She maybe didn't even feel it. I have no idea. We never had that conversation.
If you feel it, usually the other person feels something.
I would think so, but in reality, I don't know. I did not ask that one. Maybe I avoided that one, but I knew I needed to continue to lean in and be a leader versus avoiding this uncomfortableness. I was not like, oh yes, I'm ready for this. I was like, oh no, okay, I got to have a conversation. Let me prepare, right?
Well, and I think that's a good example of, I think a lot of these things that we talk about, right? You can go and you can find these on like Brene Brown or, anywhere, John Maxwell, wherever, but it's putting them into practice.
Yes.
And I think that's the difference when we talk about the space that we fill here in the food industry, is because people hear these things and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to lean in the next time that's messy. And guess what? You maybe don't, because you don't have somebody there like Tia and I going, what'd you do for the next step?
Right.
Like, how are you preparing for that conversation? Let's role play that conversation.
Yes.
And then I think the follow-up as well, because even in the example that you gave, like, that's a great time to be able to step in and be like, hey, are we okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And having someone who's focused on supporting you through leadership. And I was fortunate. I had a coach to help me with that.
Yeah.
So when I was leaning into these things, they were like, good, go have that conversation and call me.
Yes.
And that's what leadership is about. It's about, I'm invested in where you're going and how it's going. So let's be on this journey together.
Yes.
Because it is going to be messy and it is going to be human.
Mm-hmm. 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 But it's important to lean into that, because that really flows into our third point of that it's a team effort. And I think that we even talked about this earlier, on like really leaning into not just your high performers, but also, right, the other people on your team, all people on your team, really leaning into it, because it is a team effort. Culture does not work well if you are only looking at the few.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once again, my pet peeve is we all have values on the wall, or, we tout those when we go to, town halls and, or company meetings, and people talk about how we have integrity and, we're innovative and we're, pick your magic word that makes people feel warm and fuzzy-ish. But the thing is then when you talk to people, and this is the whole thing about surveys too, right? Like, people take surveys and they get the warm fuzzies perhaps, but then when you actually talk to people and they're like, right? Like, it's not that great.
Yes.
How many people are like, if there was another job that came along, I'd jump.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't tell us that people are invested or that they have pride in maybe your team, the work, or your company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to really think about not just culture. Last week, someone had this question about, like, what other word can we use besides culture?
Oh, yeah.
And Tia, like you and I, right, we talk all the time about, like, what do we stand for?
Yes.
Who are we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, even though that's culture, we're so, like, blah. I'm so sick of the word culture at times, because it's been used, misused, generic. It's like, it's real purpose and intent has gotten lost along the way of, we're just trying to meet another checkbox on GFSI or some list.
Right. Exactly. It's we talk about like, is it a buzzword, right? Well, as organizations, as leaders, we've really used it that way, right? Like you said, we put up all the values and we care about this, we care about that. This is how we are, but those values do not show up in action, and so we can't really see that. Oh, okay, integrity. This is what integrity means to us as the organization, as leaders. This is how we show up, and then we have to be able to have intentional action around that. How do we show it? And how do we show it in moments of messiness and conflict, right? How do we really step in times where, man, we really want to get this case out the door. We really want to fill this order, but it's contradicting, or this value is not actually there for us.
Yeah.
Can we say no, right?
And even though we all know intuitively that this is important and it's a game changer for how we feel about work and our company and what we're doing, there's still so many times that people are just like, that's just how that person is. That's just how we do it. And that's why, we have the client who does team coaching, which is fantastic because it's a space where, they were all like, we don't love how we're treating each other, but we're also not sure how to move forward and make it all better. Like we have moments where it feels better, but it's more surface level. And then we still have these valleys of like, we haven't named what the problem is, or not openly. We haven't actually tried to work on that. And like, those are the things that will continue to hold your team back until you're willing to be like, we need to dig some of that stuff out and look at it. We need to bring it to the light.
Yes.
Like, that's not who we want to be. Someone who's like, yeah, let's go have lunch. And then somebody else being like, oh my gosh, that lunch crowd.
Right. Yes.
They only take a certain people with them.
And it's important as leaders, like if you have a team like that, right, and you feel like they're really not getting along, it's important for you to look at how you are leading, right? Like many times we have people come in that want to do, team coaching, that want to get, the dynamics better on their team. And once we start to talk with them, their leader is not actually supportive of the things that they do, or is intentionally or unintentionally fueling, right, the disagreements that are happening on the team. So, and that's a hard thing to do. We really focus on this self-awareness within strategic leader, on how am I showing up, right? How am I showing my own personal values in the actions that I do? And how does that flow, right, to my team members, whether I directly manage them or my peers, right, or how I'm indirectly leading. And that's important because we know, especially, I'm kind of talking to you senior leaders out there, right? Like we point and say, oh, my team needs, right? But in reality, if your team needs something, most likely you do too. You need something that complements the work that they're doing around leadership development.
Yeah. And I think not only is it in like those interpersonal interactions that happen, but this also shows up when we are having those moments where we are paused because, one function, I'll do the classic. There's a food safety issue and the food safety team is like, we need to do this. And ops is like, we're not doing that. Like, who said that? And those are great moments where we get to be like, what do we stand for here?
Right.
Because really, this is kind of that great divide of like what we believe we should be and what represents the food safety culture that we want to have versus, this group over here, we feel that they often are like just operationally focused.
Right. Yeah.
How do we get on the same page here on like, who do we want to be when it comes to these moments? And, maybe this is what we used to do in the past. Is that who we want to be as we go forward?
Right. Yes.
That's another example of the team. It's a team effort of being able to be in this space together and call that out.
Absolutely. And when teams are aligned, there's moments in my career when my operations team is like, we're going to do this. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I would have been that conservative, but sure, if that's what you want to do, right? And they really have the points on like, we want to do it because of this, like that's who they stand for. And I'm like, Absolutely. I love that. Right. Or times where I'm like, okay, we can do this. And they're like, I don't know, Tia. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And they have a different viewpoint around food safety or around food quality, that is different. And they're able to voice those things. And sometimes it is different than what I was going to say, but it eliminates the risk, right? Like it relates to what we actually stand for and what type of organization we want to be. And that's a great choice, right? And being able to lean into that. Like I tell my team all the time, I do not have all the answers, right? And I need people around me to be able to speak so we can come up with the best possible solution. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what culture is, right? Like one person cannot just be responsible for culture, right? First of all, they're not going to be able to drive culture or make any changes, right? Like the team has to be on board, and the team will actually tell you how quickly your culture can shift, right? And when you need to take it slow. So you need to really be listening to your team.
Yeah. And I think as for leaders out there in food, like how often are you like, oh, I spend half my day firefighting. We already went through this situation like, last week or 3 months ago, and here we are again talking about the same thing. That is a clear example of where you are not aligned on expectations and culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, there should be some high level conversations around like, are we going this direction or are we going that direction? But most people within your organization should know who we stand for and what we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all of those conversations about, is this what we're going to do with product? Does this really mean it's an issue? Is that something are we meeting regulatory requirement, or is that just a compliance thing? Like all of those should be they should be non-issues.
Right.
And I know that's pie in the sky. I get it. That's not where we necessarily are today. But can you imagine if you were all even 50% more aligned?
Right. Yes.
On how work and life can flow so much easier, because you're like, hey, you know what? What we stand for is not putting labels on boxes that are all mishmash.
Right.
I mean, something as simple as that. It doesn't even have to be a food safety issue. But like, that's not who we are as a company. That's not the message we want to give our customers when they see our product come in.
Right.
Like these are tangible examples of what we do as teams.
Yeah. And that's a real example. I've literally
all dealt with that.
Right. I've literally been in a situation where my engineering team was like, we're not gonna sticker because it looks terrible and we're not gonna do it. And I'm like, okay. Okay, I support, right? They just need to take some downtime and run them through new cases because they understood the brand, right? I'm not the only brand protector out there, right? Like each of us are the brand protectors, and they felt empowered enough to update me on what they're going to do with the product, right? And how to best represent our brand. That's that team effort, right?
And I think the trap we fall into with that is, and here's right, this is real talk, is we always think, well, we just need to put that in the SOP. If we would just, auto label, like we'd never have that problem. Mm-hmm. If we retrained, we wouldn't have that problem. And the answer is, yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yeah. And I know that sounds a little bit negative, but the reality is if we haven't aligned on this is who we are, it doesn't matter if you put it in the SOP.
Right.
We've all had auto labelers that screw things up, and all of a sudden they're on wonky and whatever. You load them wrong and they're upside down, whatever.
Right.
We've all had that happen. So if you aren't aligned on this is who we are, you can try and fix it through process, but you're still not going to get the outcomes that you really want.
No, you're not, because it's people, right? It's people. How many times do we talk to clients where they're like, we updated the SOP, we updated all these things after this major thing happened, and then the major thing happened again. Mm-hmm. Like, because you have people and you haven't worked with your people and gotten them there, right? Your team the paperwork's updated, right? To say, hey, we want to win as a team, but the team hasn't actually gotten there yet.
Yeah. And that's why, like, as we talk about leadership, I know sometimes people feel like, oh, it's one more thing on my plate, but yet the impact it has is logarithmic to pretty much any other thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you put a little bit of effort in and you are going to see great, like enormous results.
You are.
And it's the continued practice that helps that trajectory stay there. And yeah, I'm completely biased. That's because I've experienced it. We see clients like program after program who go through it and they're like, wow, like it's been a game changer.
Yes. And that's the fourth point, right? It takes practice and really resilience, which I say really practice builds resilience in situations, especially in leadership. If you are not practicing, like even the things we're talking about today, there might be one thing that stands out in your mind on like, oh yes, you know, I need to have some direct engagement with your team. Well, if you don't start doing that, right? And if you don't push through uncomfortable situations and you don't continue to practice, you will go back, right, to old habits, right? We're human beings. And we know that if we don't continue to practice, if we don't make it a part of who we are, right, how we get work done, we go right back to poor habits.
We do. Yeah. And I think about this, especially as we think about leadership with work from home or hybrid working.
Yeah.
Because it really creates this space where we need to practice. And I'm going to say different, but it's not really that different. It's just more intentional. Because when I hear like with the resilience where people are like, we can't do it.
Yes.
We are constantly facing things that we haven't faced before, whether we are in person or we are virtual.
Yes.
And as a leader, your role is to make it through all of those and be intentional. So how you structure, like you said, those team touch bases and your one-on-ones and practicing that over and over is what makes the difference.
We went to a conference now, it's been a couple of years ago, and I'll never forget, we were watching this panel and they were talking about exactly this hybrid work and engagement and culture. And someone had said, you know, it's so hard, right, to get engagement virtually and to connect with our team and to build our team. And I remember there was someone on the panel, it was actually someone in HR, and what they said is that's a leadership problem. Like that's really on you as a leader to learn the skills it takes to build engagement virtually. It happens. As a matter of fact, we have literally built sales teams around this structure. And they seem to be doing fine.
For years.
For years.
But I think about even in our programs, you know, let's say even boot camp that's only 14 weeks. We have people who are like, wow, I can't believe I'm not going to have a weekly meeting with the people here because we've grown so close.
Right.
We've shared so many moments. And that's because you and I are very intentional about how we design and facilitate so that people can feel these deep connections early and often.
And that's important, right? It's important as leaders that you understand how to do that you learn the skills to be able to do it. And we embed it even in our programs on things you take back with you, right? To practice with your teams to help build this engagement, whether they're virtual, hybrid, right? Or in person, to build those interactions. But it is on you, right? It's on you. And it's not enough for us to say, well, you know, they're just not as engaged virtually, but we have not changed at all the way that we lead, even though we're in a different environment. Like we have to shift as things shift. We can't continue to lead the same way we've been leading when the world around us is changing, right? When people are changing.
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite stats is the whole 83 or 85% of senior leaders say that leadership development is a critical element of business.
Yes.
But only 5% invest. And I think that really talks about why, as individuals, we have to be very diligent about carving out time and making it a priority.
Yes.
Even today, I've got a coaching session, like for me to be a better coach, coming up in about an hour. And of course, I look at my list of things to do today, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have time for that. And even I have to have this reframing in my head of like, yes, you do.
Yes.
Like your coaching is a priority to be able to like, one, it fills me, but two, to be a better coach for people in our programs and show up. It would be so easy for me just to deprioritize that because my list of things is so big.
Yes.
But really all that does is tell me that I'm not taking care of myself. And if I can't take care of me, I'm certainly not going to be able to take care of you. And I know that is, you guys have heard this message before, but can you make yourself a priority?
Yes.
Can you make your leadership a priority?
It's one of the reasons why we incorporate coaching into our programs, right? And a piece of that is, how do you become more self-aware? And a part of that is taking care of yourself, right?
Heck, right? You know, I'm going on vacation to the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
And even there, I couldn't help myself. Like, I mean, once you develop these habits, it's hard to leave them sometimes as well. Like, I actually put together like some little coaching prompts for all of us the next few days. If you're listening out there, that's you.
I love that.
But right, just these ways that we are going to be like setting the stage. Like, I'm going to help us practice this together.
Yes.
Because we recognize how important it is. So this coaching element of like, what are we doing and how are we supporting the people around us without, you know, I hate advising the mentor monster, you know, all of those things. They have a place, but not in coaching.
Not in coaching. And this whole piece of being able to practice what you're learning, like, you have to be able to bring that out of yourself and practice it in a way that's authentic to yourself. Only you know that, right? So coaching is able to bring that out of you and say, I think this is the right path for me. Let me practice, right? Which we have a fantastic program, enrichment, Catalyst Enrichment, to help you practice each month.
Yeah.
Focus on a topic, practice it, and then come back and reflect, right? What went well? What did not go well? What set right with me, right? What really wasn't my personality? I really didn't feel comfortable leading in that way. So let me try it a different way. Yes. And learn from your peers, right? But I mean, just in our group sessions, I learned so much from people who have been in the industry and how they have been trying to lead, right? And how they want to shift. And it could be as simple as, I remember one cohort, one of the people in the cohort was trying to get in contact with someone else, and that they didn't feel like was taking their project as a priority. And someone said, have you tried calling them? And they were like, no, I have not. Right? Like, no. It was one of those things. I'm like, why had I not thought about that? But it's because we're so in our own lanes.
Yeah, we get into these these habits that we do, whether it's, well, I shot off another email or I followed up through email. And this is where it really takes us to be mindful and intentional as leaders, to be like, pause, that's not working.
Right.
What am I contributing to this, and how can I contribute different? It takes that practice. So
it does.
You know, I love our enrichment, because clearly, like, even for me as a coach, right, I have enrichment that I'm doing every month so that I can stay coming back to live these principles that are so foundational to our ICF coaching definition. How I need to practice those as well, because I can get pulled, and recognizing that.
So if you do not have time, right, to really lead, right, and practice your leadership skills, we encourage you to carve out that time. Spend some time with us monthly at enrichment, or set some time aside on your calendar, or sign up for a leadership course, right? Because then we have set time for you to practice and reflect. Whatever it is you need to do, we encourage you, like, just carve out an hour a month. Start with an hour a month to really, really think about, what do I need to practice over this next month? How do I want to connect with my team? How do I want to move culture forward? What difficult conversations do I need to have? And how am I going to do that work, right? And coming back, and again, I keep bringing up reflection, right? If we don't reflect on the things that we're doing, they won't stick.
Yeah. And I think all of this comes back to our show topic, which is, you know, culture change is a contact sport. Leadership is a contact sport.
Yeah.
It's not sitting on the bench thinking you're going to get better just because you're like, I got this role.
Right.
No, you need to get out there on the field and practice. And you need to be going, okay, I mastered that move or that play. What's the next play that I need to be ready for? it takes contact. It takes all of this intentional practice.
It does.
And it's not painful. Believe me, I love when people join our programs and they're like, I thought I was going to have like another thing on my plate.
Right.
But instead, I get a moment where I get some time to actually pause and think about my leadership, and pause and think about who I want to be and how I want to lead this team or be in this space.
Yeah. And actually building skills should feel like that, right? It should feel like a breath of fresh air. It should feel like I'm not stacking things on my plate. It should feel like, you're able to relax almost. Like, these are literally words that people have said about our program. And we truly believe that's how you should feel when you're building skills. I think about it even with kids, right? And like how they learn through play, right? Human beings, we actually do learn through play. we learn so many more things in a situation where we are calm and we're happy, right? Like, we learn, even though I think it's a misconception that people think you need to go through struggle to learn, right? And of course, we have lessons within struggle. We have lessons within that firefighting
and some other things, yeah.
Absolutely. But if you are that all the time, none of it is fun. And
that's burnout.
To do it. Right. Yeah.
That leads to burnout. That doesn't lead to we have stronger teams because we forged through the fire together. Like,
exactly.
I call BS on that.
Right. That's like shared trauma, right? Like you're trauma bonding, right? Versus
which
bonding.
There is a place, and that can be important.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's needed in situations.
It is.
Right. But you don't want to set up a relationship, a team based a culture based off of trauma bonding, right? You want it to really be from this place of, we want to be here. We want to be a part of this movement going forward. That's what type of team that you want, right? And that's really when you start seeing culture shift, is when people are like, yes, we are on board. We want to be here. We're excited about being here. I don't feel like I'm forced here, right? To do this work. That's when you start seeing sustainable culture change.
Yes. All right. Well, I don't want to have us leave and not close with the two things that we are now including in our new Real Talk, which is, first one is, what's one leadership belief you've let go of and why? Mm-hmm. Last week we shared one, but obviously we have more that we're able to share.
Oh, yes.
So do you have last week we kind of talked a little bit about letting go of what leadership looks like. Mm-hmm. 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 We both kind of came to that. Do you have another one that you're thinking about? Like, I need to let that one go.
There's a theme that has been coming up, even as you kind of talked about, like, taking care of yourself. The Emmys happened yesterday, I think. And I was watching a speech from Niecy Nash. If you don't know her, she's an actress. And she was talking about how she is really proud of herself, that she was able to overcome these situations of, like, right, all the things they talk about in Hollywood. You don't really fit this part. You don't really look this, whatever, right? She was like, I'm going to thank myself. And there's a reason why we call it self-esteem, is because it doesn't matter what anyone else cares or thinks or says or whatever it is. It matters about myself. And you kind of talked about, like, even making sure that you focus on yourself. And we talk about, like, becoming more self-aware here. And so I think one of the leadership beliefs that I'm working on letting go is really around this whole piece of, I need to only focus on other people versus setting out time for myself. Right. And we talked about it throughout the show in multiple ways. But, when you talk about, setting off, an hour for enrichment for yourself, for coaching, how do you set off time even from our family? Right. So we can be able to read a book or decompress. I think a lot about, like, just even, like, self-care. I'm on the self-care mission this year. So I've been sort of working on that. But I think a lot of leaders and, leaders that we have talked to, it's like, how do I actually create this time for myself? And we would say it's critical. It's critical that you do that. Otherwise, you're not doing what's best for your team.
No, right. We even have someone in our strategic cohort right now who is like, I've been so focused on others, I forgot that I need to grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, welcome. That's how we put our arms around.
Yes, yes. So that's a belief that's even coming up, right? That I need to focus even more on and be intentional about it.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know if this is necessarily a leadership belief, but just a human belief. Preconceived notions about people.
Ooh.
Right. There's just things like my brain, right. We all make judgments about people when we see them. But, you know, I found it even earlier this week because they're like, I recognize the name of someone. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what are they going to, like, what would we talk about? Or, I mean, just these random things about these preconceived notions about like maybe who they are or like who I am in this space with them. Like, let go of that. Just be like, welcome, human.
Yes.
I got to remind myself of that more. Like,
that's a good one.
Welcome, human.
That's a good one. When we see each other as humans, right? Like, I'm really, like, yes, this person might have a title, blah, 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 right? But it's like when you really think about us being human beings, like, I feel like it just kind of takes the pressure off, right?
And even, I guess it was last week, I said this week, whatever. You know, even in my head, I mean, I reframe it. I'm like, you know what? They're here, probably nervous a little bit, just like me.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like me, that they're like, what will this be?
Right. So. Yes.
And for all our listeners out there, I want to be mindful because we're coming down to the last couple of minutes. So we're going to have to like stay focused on our timing as we do these things. For our listeners, what's one shift you're taking away from this episode? Like, we love that you're here, but we also know you've been here and we want you to leave with something that you think is actionable, interesting, a new perspective. That's what makes this an ROI event for you.
Yes.
So drop it in the chat or, you know, DM us on LinkedIn, but we want to hear what landed for you because next week we want to share like one thing a listener shared last week was
yes.
Put that in there for us.
Yes. So please send us a note about it because we would love to hear. And we want to share, last week we shared a tool. We actually want to share that same tool this week for ones that did not get it. If you are interested in changing culture, we actually created a really cool assessment tool for you to start thinking about how you can start to shift your culture, right? How do you become more engaged, right? And really lean into the messiness of human beings and capitalize on the fact that we are a team, right? And this team effort will push us forward. And then how do you really practice, right? And really build that resilience. This assessment is a great tool to start with. And it's free. All you have to do is use a QR code and download it. We would love to hear what you got from it, right? And what your takeaway was from that. So download the tool, let us know. We're excited about it. Okay. So if you loved our episode today, share it, subscribe to us on YouTube so that you can catch us each week. And we're here every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central Time, talking about everything culture and everything leadership. So thank you for being with us this morning.
And make it a great week.
Yes. We'll see you next week.